Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Pei Aleph, Amud Aleph 81a of Maseches Kiddushin. We are starting 12 lines down the page. The first word on the line is Mai, and at the end of the line it says Amar Rav. So Rav says, Malkin al Yichud, ve'ein osrin al Yichud. If a man and a woman transgress the laws of Yichud and they seclude each other together, we give them malchus, we give them lashes, but we do not forbid the woman to her husband. So even though if a woman were to commit adultery, there's an Isser Labal, Isser Labala, she becomes both forbidden to ever marry the man that she committed adultery with, as well as she can no longer remain married to her husband. But that's if we know that they committed adultery. If, though, all that happened was they had yichud, they were secluded, so then that does not forbid her to remain with her husband. But we would give malchus. Rashi says it's malchus mardus, which means it's d'Rabbanan. It's a rabbinically ordained malchus lashing. So malking al yichud ve'en osrin al yichud. We'll give malchus, but we won't forbid her to her husband. Amar Ravashi says lo amron ela biyichud penuya. That will only be true if a man had yichud with a penuya. A penuya is an unmarried woman. Interestingly, a yichud with a penuya is not deoraisa, it's not by Torah law. It's a later gezerah, it's a later enactment, but it is forbidden. And Ravashi says that's when we would give malchus. If a man secludes himself with a married woman, lo, we would not give malchus for that. Why not? It's actually a stricter offense. Why would we not give malchus? Because we don't want people to start spreading rumors about her children. Because if all she did was have yichud, as far as we know, then and we give malchus for it, and people find out about that, so people are going to say, they're going to claim, she had malchus because she committed adultery, and her children are mamzerim. So we would not want that because it's not true, and we don't want these types of rumors spreading about her children, and therefore we won't give malchus at all because we don't want people to be under that impression. Mar Zutra, though, Malki Umachris. Mar Zutra came up with a solution. Even for a married woman, he would give malchus if she was miyachid, if she had yichud. But Machris, he would send an announcement out that said, everybody should know that this malchus is not because she actually had adultery. Don't worry, her children are fine. This malchus is for yichud. And that way, people would know, and we don't have to be concerned that there would be rumors spread about her children. So says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Nachman miFarhatya le Rav Ashi. Rav Nachman from Parhatya said to Rav Ashi, who would not give malchus to a married woman because he was afraid about the rumors that would be spread. Mar nami lilki v'lichris. You also, why don't you do the same thing as Mar Zutra? If a woman has a yichud, give her malchus, give her lashes, and then announce that it was only because of yichud, not because of adultery, and the children are fine. Why won't you do that? So Amar le, he said back, Ika deshama baha v'lo shama baha. I'm concerned that some might hear about the lashes, but they won't hear about the announcement, and then they'll continue to suspect that it was for adultery and that the children are mamzerim. I don't want to put them through that unnecessarily, and therefore, out of that sensitivity, lest somebody hear about the malchus and not about the not the announcement that really it's just because of yichud, not because of adultery. I don't want to. I'm not going to do it at all. Okay. Continuing along the same lines, Amar Rav says, Malkina lo tova hashmua. We'll give malchus just if somebody has a bad rumor about them. If there's rumors going around about a certain individual that he or she is doing averis, is transgressing the Torah, so we'll give malchus for that. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, Al beni ki lo tova hashmua. Literally, it means like, no, my son, because the rumors are bad, something along those lines. It's a pasuk in Shmuel Aleph. So Al-Banai, I think it's Eli speaking to his sons. He's saying stop doing what you're doing, there's bad rumors going on about you. But the Gemara is darshaning that Al-Banai, as in like the very, it's Al means no, it's like low, no, it's a transgression that lo tov hashmo, even bad rumors about you is a transgression. And since even bad rumors is a transgression, so it's fit to give malchus just for comporting oneself in a way that bad rumors are spread about them. And so Rav says we would give malchus even for just lo tov hashmo, even for being an individual about whom bad rumors are spreading. Mar Zutra mosiv la afsira al ksafe umakrile al banai. When Mar Zutra would give malchus to a person who had bad rumors about him, he would put a bridle on the guy's shoulders, and he would then announce al bana. He would make this announcement to let people know that it was because of this lav. He would say what it was for that they were getting malchus. It's because there are bad rumors about him. What was the idea of putting a bridle on the man's shoulders? So, I think there's different reasons offered, but one reason is I think that the person was acting kind of like an animal. They were not controlling themselves, and therefore we put a bridle on them, like a reins that could be used to control an animal, and that sends the message that they are acting in a inappropriate, out of control manner. Okay, the Maharsha does not comment over here, but I think I saw something like that. Okay. Continuing on. Amar Rabba. Rabba said, Baila ba'ir ein choshing mishum yichud. If a woman's husband is in the city, there's no concern of yichud. She's allowed to be secluded with another man if her husband is in the city. Just to be clear, according to Rashi, actually, it means that she wouldn't get malchus if she was alone. She's not allowed to be alone even if her husband is in the city. She can't be alone with another man. Just if she would, we wouldn't give malchus. But Tosfos argues, and that's the halacha. Again, how it's applied exactly is, for a discussion for another time. But Tosfos understands that, no, what it means is that if the husband is in the city, we are less concerned that she would sin. It could be because she's afraid he might come home any time, or it could be just the idea that he's nearby puts kind of a fear of singing over her, and therefore we wouldn't be concerned if she would be secluded with a man for whatever reason, because we don't suspect that she might come to sin because her husband is nearby. So Ba'ala Ba'ir, if the husband is in the city, Ein Choshing Mishum Yichud, we are not concerned of Yichud. Amar Rav Yosef says, Pesach Basuach Reshus Harabim Ein Choshing Mishum Yichud. If there's a door open to the public domain, so then we also are not concerned about Yichud. So this is another heter, another way to allow for a man and a woman to be in the same house together, even if they're not married, would be to leave the door open. It's a question amongst the authorities if open means actually ajar, or if just unlocked is suffices. But that's Rabbi Yosef's heter, that is his leniency. As long as the door is open, then there is no isser, there's no prohibition of yichud. Rav Bibi ikla l'bei Rav Yosef. Rav Bibi once went to the house of Rav Yosef. Basar de karach rifta. After they ate, Amar lahu, he said to them, he was staying in the attic, and the way you get to an attic is you take a ladder up to the attic. So he went up to his attic, and he said, Shkulu darga mitusi bivi. He said, please remove the ladder so I can't get down. He seemed to be concerned that that otherwise, if he could come down, he might end up being alone with a woman, perhaps with his host's wife, and he didn't want that temptation. He said, take away the ladder. Asked the Gemara, Amar Rabba, but didn't Rabba say, Ba'ala ba'ir ein choshen mishum yichud? If, as long as the husband in town, it's not a problem. So why was Rav Bibi concerned that even if he would come down and be alone with Rav Yosef's wife, what would the problem be? Rav Yosef was in town, even if Rav Yosef would leave the house for a short time, but he's in town, and there's no issue of yichud. So the Gemara answers, Shani Rav Bibi dishushvinte havai v'gaisabe. The difference is, Rav Bibi was actually a good friend. He was very close to Rav Yosef's wife, and Gaisabe, he had close feelings for her, not necessarily attraction, but they were close. I think some say they had grown up together, but the idea is that if somebody, that this is actually an exception to the rule of Bala Ba'ir, that generally speaking, yichud would be permitted as long as the husband is in town. But if it's two people who know each other very well, and they like each other, again, not necessarily like that they're attracted to each other, but they're close, and if they're already close, so then it's more of a concern that things can develop and get out of hand, and therefore there's more of a concern. And again, this is a practical halacha. Again, how it's applied is a discussion for another time. But even with Bala Ba'ir, even if a husband is in town, if it's somebody who one is close to, this could come up with a relative, like an aunt or a sister-in-law or something like that, who you know very well and you're very close with, but that's actually even though they're family, but actually can make it more of an issue of yichud, and in such a case, Ba'ala Ba'ir might not help, even if the husband is in town. That might not help, and it would be forbidden for a man to be alone with that woman. Again, the man who is close with them. Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana said, Anashim mi bachutz, v'nashim mi bifnim, ein choshing mishum yichud. So if you have a setup as follows, it's I guess like can you imagine like a dorm or something, and in order to, and there's an inner chamber and an outer chamber. To get to the inner chamber, you have to go through the outer chamber. So let's say you have men in the outer chamber and women staying in the inner chamber. So Rav Kahana says we're not concerned with yichud because we're not. Why would the men go into the women's quarters, which is inside? That's not on their way out. So we're not. If they would, then it would be a problem. But that actual setup on its own is okay because the men don't have to go into the women's area, and because it's not on the way out, it's further in. So that's not a problem. And it's true the women, in order to get out, will have to go through the men's area, but if there's many men there and a woman, so that's not a problem of yichud. Like we learned that one woman with multiple men is not an issue of yichud. However, he says, Anashim bifnim, if the men would be staying inside, v'nashim mibachutz, the women outside, choshim mishum yichud. So then there could be an issue of yichud, because the way Rashi learns at least is, if one of the men leaves, he's going to go into the women's area, and then that's going to be yichud. Rashi, I believe, holds that even though we only talked previously about one man with two women being yichud, one man with two women, the same would be true with 3 women, 4 women, it doesn't matter. One man with any number of women is still yichud. And so Rashi will learn that there will be a problem. What the Gemara is saying is if the men are staying on the inner chamber and the women are staying on the outer chamber, in order for any man to get out, he has to go through the women's area, and that would be a problem of yichud. That's what Rav Kahana said. But mimasnisa tana ipcha, we have a teaching of a brisa that says the opposite. The opposite meaning that if the men are on the outside and the women are on the inside, then it's a problem. What's the problem? We're concerned one of the men might go into the women's area, and the man on the outside won't realize. He'll go into the secluded area with the women, and that will be that'll be a problem of yichud. But if the women are on the outside and the men are on the inside, so for one woman to go to multiple men, if she would go inside, that's not a concern of yichud. And if one of the men would come out, and he'd now be with the women, but that we wouldn't be concerned because at any moment another man might come out because it's on the way out. So they have to go through the women's area to get out in this case. So that wouldn't be a problem. So the opposite says that if the men are on the if the men are on the outside and the women are on the inside, that's a problem of yichud because one man might go deeper into the women's quarters without anybody realizing, and that would be a problem. But if a woman would come out, it's not a problem because it's one woman with multiple men. That's okay. But the opposite. One second. Yeah, but if the women are on the outside, so then there's no concern because, like we said, if a woman would go inside, it wouldn't be yichud, and if a man would come to the women, come out and go on his way out, stop in the women's area, that's not a problem of yichud, even though it's one man with multiple women, because there could be someone right behind him, and we're not concerned that they'll do anything because at any moment another man might come. That was the opposite teaching. But says the Gemara, Amar Abaye says, Hashta de Amar Rav Kahana Hachi. But once Rav Kahana said it one way, Rav Kahana said that when the men are on the outside and the women are on the inside, it's not a problem. But if the men are on the inside and the women are on the outside, it is a problem. And the Masnisa, the Brisa said the opposite. So says Abaye, I'm going to go with chumrah on both, and I'm not going to allow for such a setup. You can't have a setup where you have a men's quarters, a women's quarters, and one of them has to go through the other in order to get out. Everybody should have their own exit, I guess. That is what Abaye concluded. The Gemara relates that, again, I guess on the topic of the concerns about the mingling of men and women, Abaye dayer gulfi. When Abaye would give a shir, he would give a class, so he would put up a machitza of sorts using like jugs, and that would separate them, and that way you couldn't really get it crossing. If you would try, it would make a lot of noise, basically. Rava dayer kana. Rava would put up reeds, a reed mechitza, a reed partition. And then on the related note, it says, Amar Avin sakva deshasa rigla. Kind of like the wound, the worst part of the year is the regel, is when we go up for the shalosh regalim, because although it's a great holiday and it's a mitzvah for everybody to go up to Jerusalem, but it's also a lot of mingling, and therefore there's something bad about it. Rav Avin is saying actually this is where the custom of Bahab comes from. Bahab is some have a custom to fast and say slichos on the Monday, Thursday, and Monday of the first month after the regalim. So in Cheshvan after Sukkot, and in Iyar right after Pesach, because we need to do tshuva, because even when we run up the regalim, again it's a mitzvah and there's a lot of good things about it, but there's this extra mingling and a lack of tznius, and therefore that's where the custom of Bahab, of those extra days of fasting and slichos, comes from. And that relates to the statement of Avin that sakva deshasa rigla, the kind of the wound of the year, the worst of the year, in terms of yichud and these types of concerns is during the regalim when many are gathered. Rashi says, "Kvutzas anashim anashim lishmoa drasha." Right, they're gathering together even to hear a shir, to hear a drasha, but still, nosnim v'nosim zeh mizeh. They end up mingling and conversing, and that is a breakdown of modesty. Okay, continuing on. Now the Gemara has a number of very surprising stories. The Gemara says, Hanach shvuyaisa da'asai leneherda. There were some women captives that were, I guess, rescued, and they brought them to the city of Neherda in Babylonia. Askinu l'bei Rav Amram Chasida. They brought them to the house of Rav Amram, the righteous. And I guess that way it's kind of a protection for them. We weren't concerned that men would start going after them. They were in the house of Rav Amram after all. Ashkubu darga mikamayu. And similar to what we had in the previous story, they stayed in the attic and they removed the ladder so that there wouldn't be mingling. They would stay where they are and they wouldn't come down and others wouldn't go up there. But one time, one of the women was walking near the entrance to the attic, and this great light entered the house because of her beauty. So Rav Amram noticed this. He noticed this beautiful woman up there. Shakli Rav Amram Ladarga, he grabbed a ladder that 10 people couldn't hold, and Dalia L'chudei, he carried this heavy ladder himself because he was so attracted to her, he wanted to go up to her. Salak Vazel, he took it and he started to go up. Kimata lepalga darga, but when he got halfway up the ladder, ifshach, he kind of strengthened himself to overcome his inclination, his yetzer hara. He spread out his legs to steady himself, and Rama Kala, and he raised up his voice and he yelled, Nura be Amram, there's a fire in the house of Amram. And this way people would come running, and he knew that it could be he meant like a fire of the yetzer hara, but he knew that this way he wouldn't succumb to sin. So Asa Rabbanan, the Rabbanan arrived, Amrulei, they said to him, Kisiftinan, you've embarrassed us with your behavior. Amar Lahu, he said to them, Mutav tichsefu be'amram be'alma hadain v'lo tichsefu minei la'alma dasi. He said, it's better I get embarrassed in this world than I get embarrassed in the next world, and this was a way to prevent me from getting embarrassed in the next world, to avoid sin. So now he had a conversation with his yetzer hara, and he kind of made the yetzer hara take an oath that it would leave. Nafak minei ki amuda denura. It left like a pillar of fire. Amarle, so Rav Amram said, Chazidat nura. I see you, yetzer hara, you evil inclination, you're fire. Va'ana bisra, I'm just flesh. Va'ana difna minach, but I'm better than you because I beat you. You tempted me, you tried me, but I defeated you. Even though you're fire and I'm flesh. That's the first story. Another story. Rabbi Meir ha-mislotzitz be'ovrei avera. Rabbi Meir used to mock people who transgressed averas, transgress sins. They can't hold themselves back. You know, what kind of people are they? Yom echad idmi le satan ke'itza. So the Satan wanted to get back at him, the Satan, the evil inclination, and one day it dressed itself up as a woman. Bahach kisa dinahara. On the other side of the river, but I guess a very attractive woman, and Rabbi Meir saw her and was attracted. Lo hava mavra. There was no ferry to get him across the river. Nakat matzra dika'avar. So he used a rope crossing. So this was actually by design. They would have a rope that went across the river, and you hold on to the rope, and you would you put your feet on some kind of board and pull yourself float on the board as you hold on to the rope to get across the river. Okay, that's how he was going to cross to get to this attractive woman. So what happened? Kimata palga matzra shavke. When he got to halfway across, the Yetzer Hara left him. So again, he had been mocking these people. The Yetzer Hara went after him, and now the Yetzer Hara left. Amar, and the Yetzer Hara said, "Ilabdika machrazi b'rakia hizar b'Rabbi Meir v'teraso shavise l'damach tarti mai." The Yetzer Hara said to Rabbi Meir, he said, if not for the fact that up in the heavens they are announcing, be careful with Rabbi Meir and his Torah. He's very righteous and very holy, and he has a lot of Torah. Be careful with him. I would have made your blood worth just 2 ma'ah. Made you almost worthless. I would have allowed you to sin. So this was kind of a warning to Rabbi Meir that it's not always so easy to overcome one's Yetzer Hara. He had to grapple with it, and in the end, the Yetzer Hara kind of let him off. A similar story, Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva was mocking was scoffing at people who transgress Averos. Yom Echad, Idmi le Satan ki itza b'reish dikla. One time the Satan appeared as a beautiful woman on top of a palm tree. Nakte le dikla v'kasalik. So Rabbi Akiva was attracted to her, and he wanted to go up the tree to see her. Kimata le plauge de dikla. When he got halfway up the tree, Shavke, again the Yetzer Hara left him alone. And again, Amar, it said, if not for the fact that they're announcing up in the heavens, Hizar Rabbi Akiva v'toraso, beware of Rabbi Akiva and his Torah, Shavise l'damach tarti ma'i, I would have made your blood worth just 2 ma', I would have rendered you worthless, allowing you to sin. So, these stories are very difficult to understand really exactly what they're supposed to mean. It's hard to imagine that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva, these great rabbis, were so taken by the sight of a woman. But it could be the idea is that the Yetzer Hara, if it wants to, if Hashem wants it to really challenge a person, then it could happen, even a great person. There is an expression in Chazal, in the Gemara, that the greater person is, the greater the Yetzer Hara is. So the Yetzer Hara kind of reflects how great a person is, that sometimes they get greater tests and greater challenges. Okay, another story. Primu havaragil lememar. This is a related type of story, but in terms of the Yetzer Hara challenging a person, but it's a different challenge, as we'll see. Primu havaragil lememar kol yom. Primu used to say every day, Gira be'ene de Satan, an arrow in the eye of the Satan, of the Yetzer Hara. That was like a challenge to the Yetzer Hara. Yom Echad, one day, Mali Yom Kippur, it was Erev Yom Kippur. Idmi le kania. The Yetzer Hara dressed up as a poor person. Asa kara abava. He came and he knocked on the door to Primo's house. Afiku le rifta. So they brought out some bread for the poor person, because that's what he was here for. He came asking for bread. Amar le. So the poor person said, Yoma ki a day like today, kuliyama gavai. Everybody's inside. Vana avarang. I have to sit outside. Thank you for the bread, but I'd like to come in. So Aile, he brought him in. Ukrivu le rifta, and he brought him some bread. Amar le, he said to him, Yoma ki'idna. A day like today, the poor person said, Kuliyama atacha v'ana l'chudai. Everybody's singing at the table. On Erev Yom Kippur, there's a mitzvah to eat. Everybody's singing at the table, and I have to sit in the entrance hall or something. You're not inviting me to the table. So they brought him osvu atacha, and they sat him at the table. Hava Yosef, he was sitting there. Male nafshe shichna. I don't know if this was sudden or this was the whole time. He became full of boils on his skin, vikibi, and again like pas ale. He was just doing disgusting things. Doesn't say what, but he was acting in a gross manner at the table. Again, this is the Yetzer Hara dressed up as a poor person. Amrulei, so they said to him, Tiv Shapir, sit nicely, behave. Stop doing disgusting things. Amrulei, fine. So he said, Havu Yahavule Kasa, can you bring me a cup to drink? Ichmar and Shadabe Kicho. He coughed and or something, or I think he brought up phlegm, and he spit it into the cup, and didn't exactly improve his behavior. Nachrube, so they yelled at him. So Shaka Umis, he kind of bent over and died, or made it look like he had died. So Shamud Abu Kamri, so they heard, people were saying, Plimu katal gabra, Plimu katal gabra, Plimu killed someone, Plimu killed someone. So Plimu got scared. Arak, he ran, Vitasha nafshe v'veisakise, he went to hide in the bathroom. Azal Basre, so now this poor person, I guess, got up from the dead, and again, it's the Yetzer Hara dressed up as a poor person. He got up from the dead. Vitasha nafshe v'veisakise, Azal Basre nafal kameh. And he fell in front of him. The Chazia de Hava Mitztar. He saw that, or I guess maybe Primo fell in front of him, and then the Satan saw Chazia de Hava Mitztar. He saw that Primo was very in pain from all that was going on. So Galilei Nafshe, he revealed himself. He said, "I'm the Yetzer Hara. I was just testing you." Amarle, and he said to him, the Yetzer Hara said, "My taima Amar Tachi. Why do you say an arrow in the eye of the Satan? You know, it's a challenge." So Amar so he said back, "What should I say? I want to, I guess, say something that says I'm going to resist the Yetzer Hara. What should I say?" So Amarle, you should say, let you say, Rachmana li garbe b'Satan. Hashem should yell at the Satan. And maybe that's a less, maybe less violent or something. He said, that's less of a challenge to me. That's what you should say, but don't say that there should be an arrow in the eyes of a Satan. Okay, we'll continue next time with more exciting adventures.